Musically Abroad. I am the Naarah half of Musically Abroad.
And I am the Megan half.
And today we're talking about teacher burnout.
Yes. So, for those of you that don't know what teacher burnout is, Nay, could you just break it down for us a little bit?
Yeah. So, teacher burnout is when you just get to a point where teaching you feel like you can't do it. Like you get to a kind of a wall. And I think in any kind of profession or any kind of even just hobbies or passions, it's pretty common to like get to that place where you reach into a wall and burn out. You can burn out in many different things. And so the problem with teacher burnout is that like you can't just stop teaching mid-year when you hit that wall. I mean, I guess some people could, but it's obviously not ideal. So I guess the big problem with teacher burnout specifically is that what happens when you hit that wall in the middle of the year, you feel like you can't keep going, you feel like you can't do it. Um, how you can prevent that, and then if it happens, how you can deal with that. And so I know I've dealt with burnout before, and it's not good. So we're gonna talk about how we kind of can prevent that, or how we've like worked through it in the past.
Right. So, I think for me, teacher burnout has happened multiple times. I have actually almost quit my job twice. And you can quit halfway through the year due to teacher burnout. My first year of teaching, I went in with 25 teachers, brand new teachers to our school. And by the end of the year, there were only three of us left. So we
Wow.
lost 22 teachers throughout the year that were burnt out due to whatever was going on at the time. And we're really lucky that that hasn't happened much since, but we still lose. Well, we don't lose anymore, but we lost 12 teachers halfway through the year, that first year. So 12 classes had no teachers, none. And
Wow.
so teacher burnout is just something that I feel like now that I have seen so many quit because of that, it's something that's just so personal to me. Um,
Hmm.
so I think my first question, Naara, have
Yes.
you ever felt teacher burnout, and when did you feel it?
Yeah. So I think there's a perception that like in China, our kids are like easier to deal with. I agree in some aspects. In some aspects, I really don't. Um, I still have had fights in my room. I've still had like really toxic classroom environments that we've had to work through. I've had kids like have really tough home lives. I have kids who like parents don't go home to them because I have issues. But in general, I feel like my school itself is a really good environment. So my burnout didn't necessarily come from my school so much as it came from me and my internal love of teaching. Because coming from university, I was obsessed with teaching, obsessed. Like it was like for the first maybe 3 years of teaching, I was obsessed. It was a hobby for me, like planning lessons, watching teacher videos, reading books about teaching, classroom management, everything. It was almost like a hobby. So for me, when I got to it was last year, right before the pandemic, I feel like I had hit a wall, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And I feel, in retrospect, I feel like that was very self-induced. I appreciate that my school kind of allows us to open and do whatever kind of things we want to do. But with that being said, I like to do a lot of things, and so I was putting a lot on my plate. The kids, at one point, we had like 3 performances off campus in 2 weeks, and I totally put. I know. Um, so I totally put this on myself, and I think it's important to talk about that too, because I know a lot of teachers will come into like your first few years of teaching so excited and so ready to go. Um, but if you don't give yourself some time to be yourself and not just a teacher, that's where burnout happened. So last year for me, right before COVID, um, I also had a really difficult class that year. It was like I would plan, work really, really hard, and it just like nothing was bouncing off the kids. They had a super toxic classroom culture, and it was just really hard to do anything because they were always all afraid of taking risks in front of each other. And so there was that really difficult class. Plus, I had just been I got to a point where teaching became my whole identity. I wasn't like really going out as much because I spent a lot of my time planning and like getting ready for teaching. So for me, like that was all encompassing. And at one point, right before COVID started, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like I genuinely feel like I would maybe be happier in a different job. I guess that was the blessing of COVID, that I had to learn to be by myself, and I had to learn to find hobbies that were not teaching, because teaching wasn't fulfilling me because I was teaching asynchronously on Canvas, and it wasn't good. So now that I'm back, I feel much better. I feel like I can coast. I can get through it now. So
I have to say, I think I've had it twice. And the first one was my second year of teaching. My first year teaching was fantastic. I wouldn't change anything for the world, but classroom management had to be on 10. And I felt like I was a military sergeant all the time, because that's unfortunately what the kids needed so I could gain respect. And in my second year, it was easier, but we had brand new kids. Like 95% of my students were brand new. And so I felt like I was starting over. And as a second year teacher, I was like, I don't want to start over. I don't want to do this again. I don't want to repeat my first year. I want to be a second year teacher. I don't want to have to deal with classroom management. I want my lessons to work. I don't want to have to think outside the box, which is selfish, but it's what I was feeling at the time. And so halfway through my second year, I went to winter break and said, I'm going to push through the end of the year. And if I don't want to do this, I'm done. So that was the first time. And then just like you said, I hit that second teacher burnout right at COVID. Behaviors were just off the wall. And I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And then COVID hit, and I really, again, had to learn how to be alone, all of that. But I also found out how much I like being in the classroom. I miss the kids. And so when we finally came back in September, and the kids were like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. What do you mean? Like, I am so ready to teach y'all. And I've kind of felt that way since then. I haven't had that burnout since, which is good. But, you know, as COVID cases rise here, things are getting a little harder and the burnout's becoming a little more real. But I feel like that's normal. I feel like the pandemic, we have to throw this whole year away. 2020 is
the whole year, just burn the whole year.
The whole year gets thrown in the garbage. Okay, so what you were talking about, how you had to find yourself.
Yes.
What did you find out about yourself that you now use as a priority to avoid burnout?
Not working or thinking about school or talking about school after school and on the weekends, which is crazy because I used to love doing that. I used to love it. I would go to Starbucks on a Saturday and spend a lot of the day like planning things. It genuinely and still planning things, like organizing my classroom, organizing events, still brings me a lot of joy. But I've also found that I enjoy being social, which Megan, right. So I haven't talked to Megan about this at all yet, but it's a surprise because I'll backtrack a little bit from how I found what's important to me. So I think it was first being home I was home for 5 months during this whole COVID thing in the States. And it was my mom has immune issues and my parents are really concerned about the virus. So I spent those 5 months at home. I would drive my car to Panera Bread, sit in the parking lot. Yes, right. And I didn't see Megan, I didn't see any of our friends. I didn't see anybody. After that, I got to a point where, with everything going on in the US, it's very scary. I want to be back in Asia. I want to be closer to China in case borders open. And when I moved to so that was kind of the big point where I was in this beautiful city. I love South Korea. I love Seoul. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. I have friends there. My friends were all either working or being extra COVID. So I was kind of in this city alone, kind of by myself. And I started feeling like I wish I could just share more of the city with people. I started feeling that urge. Where before, I always enjoy solo travel, but 3 months of just kind of alone, wanting to spend more time with my friends and see more people was really hard. So when I came back to China, the virus situation here is so much, it's leaps and bounds above what I expected it to be. So we're able to do more things with people and spend more time and go places and hang out and explore. And when I came here, I felt this urge to start doing that more. And the more I've done it, I've been enjoying that more. And so what I found is not thinking about school and spending time with other people, like not talking about school. Or sometimes we talk about school when we all work together. So like what we have in common is school. So sometimes we talk about school, but just like spending time doing other things. We did laser tag last weekend. We went to a Halloween function, and like it's just been so fun to get out and just do something not school related and feel like a person instead of just a teacher. And I didn't know that I needed that.
Right.
And so now I feel like when I go to school, so like last night I went to trivia with my coworkers and we had a blast. And I know that on tomorrow Monday, I'm going to go to school much more refreshed because I'm not thinking about school all day. I've done things that fulfill me as a person, and I didn't realize that I needed non-school things to fulfill me because for so long, school things did fulfill me, and they still do. You hear all the time people say, don't work on the weekends, like take some time to yourself, have time for self-care. They are so right. They're so right. Listen to them. If you're worried about burning out and not wanting to teach anymore, genuinely take time to learn for yourself, to learn about what you need. If whether it's social interaction, whether it's more alone time, whether it's I don't know, exercising. Take time to figure out what you need to fulfill yourself. That's not school related.
I love that.
What about you, Megan? I'm passing it back on to you now.
So I think for me, the biggest thing is I can go off speaking towards my second burnout. So during COVID, I live alone. Well, I don't anymore. I have a roommate now. One of our best friends lives with me now.
Hi, Tim.
And when I was living alone, I was going through some depression, some severe anxiety, and I picked up a habit of drinking every single night. And I'm sure most people can relate. You go from having a routine to staying in the house all day, being by yourself. I'm an introvert anyway, but being that much of an introvert, I'm not. And so going from my 3 to 4 days where I was alone, or I was having human interaction and human contact, to having absolutely none, I went through a really, really rough depression. I broke up with somebody, and I was literally by myself. And so one night I had too much alcohol and I got really sick. And the next day I said, all right, it's time to change. It's time to fix things. I started looking up ways to cope with being depressed and living alone. And I kind of learned that I do love being alone, but I actually enjoy company more, which is why I have a roommate. I have a fear of missing out. I have FOMO for days. I want to be included, but I don't want to go. But I get upset when I don't go, or all of that. So now I've learned that I want to be social. I enjoy hanging out with my friends. I like having a roommate. I like playing video games. And I find that if I cannot work on the weekends, that's great. But I'm in grad school, so it's not really possible right now. When I leave my building, I'm not working on it. It's not that important to me. The afternoons or nights are for grad school, and then if I can get with my work done there, I'm logging on to play either Sims, or I'm getting on and playing Spider-Man, or I'm hanging out with my roommate watching Schitt's Creek, or I'm making food. Like, I'm not touching nothing. And I think that's my big thing. Also, I need sports to come back. I need COVID cases to go down so I can go watch football in the stadium and watch Atlanta United play, because that was a problem. Self-care is a big thing. You have to figure out what self-care is for you. I think everybody is very specific to themselves. And my self-care is eating whatever I want, or eating really good, healthy food. If I can work out, great. If I can't, it is what it is. Playing video games, watching, like having a good time, and just like fully enjoying life.
You need to, we're humans. We're meant to be diverse.
Right.
And to have multiple different interests. And yeah, it's important to learn about self-care. But that brings me to a question now. Okay. Do you think that Do you think that you have to experience burnout on some level to learn this about yourself?
Yeah, I think you do. And I think everybody's burnout is going to be different. Like your burnout was different than my burnout. My burnout came specifically, like ours might have come at the same time, or the big one came at the same time, but yours was for a different reason versus mine. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it depends on the school, depends on the environment that you're in, what you can and can deal with. And I think it everybody needs to experience it in order. You know that rule they say if you can make it to 5 years, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You're going to experience it sometime within that 5 years. It's just a matter, can you push?
And it'll happen again.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like after 5 years, I will say, because now we're both in 5 years.
Mhm.
So it's like, I genuinely feel like I have a better handle on like things in my classroom that I can control, and like better handle on who I am and what I like. So I feel like going forward, I'd be able to better handle burnout. But who knows? Like life changes, things happen, and we're always constantly changing. So in the future, your life will change. Maybe we'll have kids. Maybe we'll get married. Whatever. Your life will change, and then certain things will like trigger burnout in a different way. I feel like people always try to give this advice to newer teachers and say like, prioritize self care, like don't work on the weekends, all this stuff. But I really genuinely think that you kind of have to experience it on some level to really understand it. Because there's also just like for a lot of people, there's just like a love of teaching that comes that you love it so much that you just want to do it all the time. And that's okay too. Like it's okay to love it so much and find like passion in it and want to do it all the time. But then eventually, like either you need to find the balance or the balance will find itself for you. And
I
I think it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Hmm.
burnout is just so ugh, even thinking about it stresses me out. it's
Yep.
yeah, it's a lot. Okay, so I think my only other question
Hmm.
is if you had advice for teachers
Yes.
and somebody was going through burnout, what
Hmm.
would you say to them in that moment?
Find yourself. Like for a lot of people, burnout comes when you're doing a lot. And it comes when you care a lot. And that's why you're doing so much. Know that like a lot of people don't do a lot. And kids are fine, work is fine, their job is fine. You need to find yourself and find your balance, because you will not be able to do everything. You will lash out at the kids without knowing. You will be like hard to work with. You will make yourself sick. You'll be calling out sick to work because you'll be so stressed. You'll be sick, and you won't be at work because you'll be home because you're making yourself sick. The most important thing is to figure out what your self care looks like, and you don't have to listen to other people specifically. Like I remember telling a teacher in my first 2 years, she was saying, well, when I leave work, I even if all my work isn't finished, I just leave and I just save it for the next day. That might not work for you. That might make you more stressed out. But for her, that's what she has decided has worked for her and what makes her feel better when she leaves work. That doesn't work for me. Like I need to finish what I need. I need to get to a stopping point at work, and when I get to the stopping point, I can leave, and that makes me feel better. So like, take time to figure out what works for you, and if you need to just do less to figure it out, it's okay. Your kids will be fine. Like it'll be fine. So that, I guess my biggest thing is like, take time to figure out what you need, and don't worry so much about doing everything, because if you're sick and tired and stressed and burnt out, you won't be able to do everything at all. Why not just take a second to do less and learn about what you need, and not have to kind of cut ties that way? So just lay off. Care a little bit less was advice I got from somebody that actually stuck with me. Care a little bit less. It's okay to care a little less about your job, and just learn about yourself, man. Learn about yourself. Yeah.
Man, there is a Facebook post going around that says your school can easily replace you. They'll find somebody for that position. The people that can't replace you are your family and you. And that, I feel like that stuck with me, because how can I dedicate to the students the way I want to if I can't even dedicate time to myself for me? And so I think that would be my biggest thing, is just like you said, find yourself. Don't feel guilty if you have to leave. I wouldn't see myself leaving halfway through the year, but if that's what you have to do, they'll find somebody else.
Yep.
I don't recommend that for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would personally do it. But, you know, if I was in a bad place where I couldn't do it, I would leave. You know, your mental health is way more important than your job or money.
Mm-hmm. And if your students will see that too, you know, like for me, I know like so my school's boarding school, like I mentioned before. And so we kind of take on this like parenting role along with being teachers. And I take that pretty seriously. And I feel like when students see, oh, Miss Calendar's like gone out to dinner with other teachers. Miss Calendar is going home early on today. I feel like when they see that, you're setting an example for them too of how to prioritize themselves.
Absolutely.
And also showing them that you're human and that you, as a human, like them, you need time to rest. You need time to recharge. You need to prioritize yourself, and they need to prioritize themselves too.
Right.
And that's, yeah, it's a good example to set for yourself, for your kids, for other people.
Right. Absolutely. I think we covered it.
Yeah. You can be burnt out from cleaning your house every day. So you can be burnt out from like, I got burnt out from walking my dog, but you learn to push through it, you know.
You got burnt out from walking the dog. Poor Ollie.
It's tough. When you first get a dog, you've never had a dog before, walking a dog every day is hard.
Yeah.
But you push through it, learn what works and how to deal with it.
Yeah, I'm a cat person for a reason.
Do you not get burnt out from cleaning the litter box?
Let's not talk about that. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Musically Abroad, Teacher Burnout Edition. If you did, like, comment, subscribe. And our socials will be in the description box below.
Yes.
I'm still not
we won't do that thing again where we try to say each other's Instagram handles. We're good on that. Okay.
All right, friends. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
And I'm going to stop recording.
Stop recording.